Hi friends, my name's Trish Roberts and you're watching Faint Signals from Vega. I wanted to talk briefly about the vegan flag that has been advertised around the place lately. The particular person who has supposedly created this vegan flag, I didn't realize that vegans were an oppressed group. I'll have to say that first, but the vegan flag has been created by someone called Gad Hakimi, and Gad Hakimi lives in central Israel, and I decided to contact Gad Hakimi, just have a look at his Facebook page to see what he had on there before I asked him a few questions privately. And I asked him, I noticed that every single photo of Gad Hakimi, he's wearing a brand new T-shirt advertising the ALF, the Animal Liberation Front, which is a pro-violence group that, and there's a lot of photos, by the way. All his photos, he is in an ALF T-shirt and he's holding a vegan flag, or he's with a bunch of people all wearing the same ALF T-shirt. So he's obviously very strongly affiliated with the ALF, which, as I said, is a pro-violence group, and you know, they really don't do any benefit whatsoever to ending the property status of non-human animals, the ALF. They really are mostly into either damaging labs. They tend to focus on fur and vivisection, which and don't seem to pay much attention at all to animals used for food. And animals used for food are 99% of the animals that are used today. So they focus on a sort of a fetishized, one is a fetishized thing, which is fur, and the other one, vivisection. Often often advocates that tend to focus on vivisection usually are into sort of destruction of property and if they're in the ALF, they're into destroying labs and sometimes sort of harassing those who are vivisectionists. And some might think, well, that's fine. No, it's not really. And veganism isn't supposed to be. And they also promote. The last time I looked on the ALF site, they promote vegetarianism, which of course still involves eating, wearing, and using animals. So they're not even really on board with what a rejection of animal exploitation means, which means that to reject animal exploitation, one at the very least has to be vegan. So the ALF is sort of like a kind of a confused group that tends to promote, sort of fetishizes certain forms of animal use and tends to enjoy kind of sort of a bit of a hyper masculine sort of thing of damaging property, and I think at times possibly trying to terrorize people in the animal industry, which is pointless. It's definitely not non-violent, but it's also pointless because those who are not vegan in society are the ones who are creating demand for animal use. It's not vivisectors, it's not those in the animal industry, and it's not people who are in the business of selling fur. They are just the suppliers. And until, sorry, my phone went off there for a moment. Until society is vegan, there's always going to be demand for all kinds of animal use, and that's why vegan education is so important. So, targeting suppliers, which is what welfarist groups tend to do, is is a pointless exercise. Targeting, like the ALF target suppliers, animal agriculture, or those who sell fur or whatever. Large animal organizations tend to target large, sort of businesses that sell animal products, etc. And that's a pointless exercise. So what I'm saying is, if Gad Hakimi is in some ways using the sale of this flag, he said privately he doesn't keep any money himself, and who knows if that's true, but I noticed that there was a sale of this flag going for $7.95 or something on a site called Alibaba, which usually sells en masse. You usually have to have produced a huge amount of a product before you can sell it on that site. I think that's the name of the site that I saw on his personal page. And I asked him, where is the proceeds for the sale of this vegan flag going? And he said, well, I don't keep it for myself. And I said, well, who's selling that flag then? And he said he didn't know. He claimed he didn't know. And I said, are any of the proceeds going toward the ALF? And he said, I don't know, you'll have to ask the sellers. But whoever those people who are selling that are, they certainly had the heads up about this flag and obviously went into some sort of mass production at the same time that this flag happened to be advertised everywhere. Now, you can search online, and you'll find lots and lots of links and interviews of Gad Hakimi about this flag. And mind you, he says the flag, as far as I can tell, the flag isn't about the animals, which is so weird, because since veganism is supposed to be, it's an ethical issue, it's an ethical position, and when that word was coined by Donald Watson in 1944, it was all about the animals. It wasn't about health, and it wasn't about the environment. That was the purpose of him coining the word, and it was to reject using animals for food. That's dairy, eggs, meat, etc., clothing, wool, leather, fur, silk, etc., and other reasons. It was supposed to be an extension. He said in his later life it was supposed to be an extension to the word vegan could be extended and broadened, to embrace nonviolence. And I'm assuming that meant toward in different human issues as well. But it's basically been built on after Donald Watson. But the initial meaning of that word was to reject animal exploitation. So, so for somebody to suddenly decide to create a flag, I don't know who he talked to about it, and then for everybody to suddenly embrace this flag, which, by the way, I can't say is any sort of graphic, any sort of design genius. It's just a blue and green sort of flag with this sort of V that's in white in the middle. I mean, it's nothing. It wouldn't take too much thought to make a design like that, and then suddenly people are embracing it. The next thing you know, there'll be probably thousands being bought, and somebody's going to make a tidy sum. And I imagine, since the designer of that flag, Gad Hakimi, seems to be so prominent in his advertising of the ALF, the Animal Liberation Front, which is a pro-violence group, that I would imagine that there will be funds funneled to those who engage in that for equipment or whatever. So, I'm just assuming that, but I mean, if you look at his Facebook page, every single photo of him is in an ALF t-shirt, and then he's surrounded by people in ALF t-shirts. So, I think one could put that together fairly easily. The other thing that probably some people may not realize, and you probably see the Palestinian flag in the background there, that living in central Israel, where he lives. One would have to have some kind of a position about the occupation of Palestinians, the ongoing genocide that's been going on there now for since at least 1948, and when Palestine was divided up, and now, I mean, it's been an ongoing genocide, and Palestinians, it's far worse for Palestinians in their occupied, in their land, than it was at the height of the apartheid situation in South Africa. Far, far, far worse. So for somebody who lives in central Israel when I asked him, so what is your position about the Palestinians? And he said, no comment. So no comment actually says a great deal. And I asked him a few different other questions about it, and all he said was no comment. So I'm gathering by that, by saying that, even though he says he has no financial interest in this flag, in the proceeds of this flag, I'm gathering that he doesn't want to talk about what his position is, and I'm guessing by the photo he had of Netanyahu on his personal Facebook page that he is probably okay with the occupation of Palestinians and the ongoing genocide of Palestinians. And I'm going to leave 4 links to some episodes from the Empire Files, which have done some excellent programs on the issue of what is happening to the Palestinians, and you will find it absolutely appalling when you watch it. And I urge you and implore you to do so, because it's getting worse and worse there. It really is an ongoing genocide. It is an ethnic cleansing of Palestinians. They are shooting people in the streets every day. That includes children, just randomly shooting to terrorize those children, terrorize the parents. They threaten the parents if the parents of Palestinian children complain. They threaten that they'll hurt their children or kill their children. Literally bulldozers are going into various areas, even though this is against the UN. The UN has ruled numerous times that this is illegal to do this, but Israeli settlers are going into areas where Palestinians live. They put up a trailer at the top of the hill, or almost right on top of where Palestinians are living, and the next thing you know, there's bulldozers coming in and bulldozing down, all their houses. They get a little note under a rock, usually, saying, we're going to come and demolish your house. And then the next thing you know, a week later or whatever, bulldozers are literally demolishing their houses while the Palestinian families are standing outside the house watching it being bulldozed. Now, this is just a tiny little glimpse into what's going on there. It's absolutely, when you watch these, I urge you to watch these 4 30-minute programs by the Empire Files with Abby Martin. Abby Martin is was the host of Breaking the Set, which was an excellent program. So I really urge you to check out those videos, those programs, and you will see how outrageous it is what's going on to Palestinians there. At the present time, they get 2 hours of, there's a completely different system for them. They get 2 hours of electricity every day at the moment. They have to, they have a limited amount of water, and they actually restrict calories going into, it's like Gaza, for example, is like an open-air prison. And there's streets where Palestinians can walk, and there's streets where Israelis can walk. But the idea is, the ultimate aim of the Israeli state, apartheid state, is to wipe out the Palestinian people. Now, you may think that's hyperbole, but it isn't. It's actually happening, and if you look online, there'll be numerous organizations that are set up to assist the Palestinians. But basically, most of the world is turning away from this crime. It's a crime against humanity, what's happening to the Palestinians. So I urge you to find out about that, because if we don't start calling out, and in fact we need to actually, going back to Gad Hakimi, one of the reasons, the person who's created this vegan flag, the reason he's probably not wanting to say what his position is, and just by saying no comment sort of says it all, that he is at the very least probably okay with what's happening. I didn't see any mention at all on his page about that situation. So anybody who has even the tiniest bit of remote sense of justice would have a problem with what's going on there, because it's, people being just shot down or executed, literally executed at checkpoints for no reason at all except to terrorize people. It's just appalling what Palestinians are trying to live under this apartheid regime. So Gad Hakimi is probably concerned. There's a movement called the Boycott, Sanctions and Divestment Movement. The BDS, Boycott, Divestment, Sanctions Movement, which is actually similar to what happened during the time of apartheid in South Africa. And I was alive during that time, where people basically refused to play in South Africa. Musicians, businesses refused to do business with South Africa. And basically that was the case until it put enough pressure on South Africa that the apartheid, the white-black situation, the oppression of black people, that was challenged to the point where it crumbled. Of course, it's still a mess today, but that's what happens when you oppress a people for that length of time and you treat them like they're nothing. It's still in a terrible state, but but that actual apartheid regime fell. So that's what needs to happen with Israel. It's much worse than what it was in South Africa, much worse. But the only way probably now to actually end that apartheid situation in Israel is to join the Boycott, Divestment and Sanctions movement. And you can find out about that if you search online, because often it's hitting people in the hip pocket is what eventually ends, sadly. Appealing to people's sense of justice doesn't work. And racism, unfortunately, has become so rampant now in Israel. It really has, because it's actually encouraged, and sadly, a lot of Israelis view Palestinians as, like, in quotes, animals. They to be exterminated kind of thing. It's sort of that kind of. It's that level of racism where people openly call for the killing of Palestinians. So you get the picture now. I mean, that's the sort of system, and that's the sort of situation they're living under. So Gad Hakimi is probably a bit concerned that even though he says he has no financial interest in this particular vegan flag, he's probably concerned that somebody is going to suggest that he is not at all. He has no position about the oppression and ongoing genocide of Palestinians, and that he might financially suffer from that. The fact that the BDS program, of course, is the BDS campaign. Actually, the idea is to put pressure on anybody, any business in Israel, so that it will collapse this apartheid system. So he'll be included in that anyway, because because he is a part of that. The fact that he doesn't have any, the fact that he says he's not going to comment says it all. So that's the irony of this, of course, is that he's created a vegan flag which is supposed to be about justice for non-human animals. And this kind of ties in with the video I did a couple of days ago, a vlog I did a couple of days ago, about the fact that many vegans don't seem to pay any attention or care too much about human social justice issues. And this is a perfect example of someone who's actually created a flag and basically saying they did it out of the goodness of their heart, and they're not going to receive any sort of financial reward from that. And yet they've got a systematic genocide going on in their own country, and they're living in the middle of it basically, and they say they have no position on it. The no comment, really. They didn't say they had no position, they said no comment. He just kept saying to me, no comment, no comment, no comment. He must have said that about 4 or 5 times to me. And I said, well, that sort of says it all, the fact that you won't comment on it. So anyway, this should give you, this is the irony of it, and the sad irony that he's supposed to have done this flag out of the goodness of his heart, to which I find odd, because he said it's said that it's not about animals, which makes it even more bizarre. But then it's about vegans. I don't know what, we're not an oppressed group. So if it's not about animals and it's about us and we're not an oppressed group, what is it about? He said it's about all earthlings. Well, why is it that every time something about veganism that's commercialized, why is it always about humans? I mean, could we be any more speciesist to keep making something that was about non-human animals? It was originally about rejecting exploitation of non-human animals. We've managed to make it time and time again about ourselves. I mean, could we be any more speciesist than we already are, that we say we're vegan? And we're all these speciesist vegans running around making veganism everything but the end of the exploitation of non-human animals. I mean, you couldn't make this up. So anyway, in summary, basically, the person Gad Hakimi, who's created this vegan flag, is okay with it appears he has, at the very best, no position about the ongoing genocide of Palestinians in his own country. But I'd say it's probably more than that. I'd say he's probably okay with it, and that the ALF is probably getting funds from that, or he's going to eventually pocket funds himself, and also that the vegan flag, vegans aren't an oppressed group, and if supposedly it's not really about the animals. So what a effed up sort of a concept that is. I mean, so I wasn't interested in it when I first heard about it. I wasn't interested in the flag. I thought, oh, here we go again, another way to exploit the whole issue of non-human animals, another way to make money off the backs of animals, where it's all feel good and aren't we vegans awesome and all this kind of thing. Honestly, the more, like I said a couple of days ago, the more I see of the animal advocacy in quotes, or animal advocacy, vegan community in quotes, whatever it is, I just have nothing in common with 99% of it. It's I was laughing today with somebody. This person was saying how he wanted to have a Jesus in the temple moment about something that he was dealing with, where people were just using just sort of besmirching an issue that he was interested in. And sometimes I feel like that, like there needs to be like a Jesus in the temple moment with how veganism and animal rights is dealt with today, because it's just like a disgusting commercialized display of speciesism, where most people are using it to line their pockets, and animals are somewhere in the background. They're pimped. We're pimping animals to make money. Well, this is what's going on. And I just see, in many ways, this vegan flag is just another expression of that, the complete moral decay of this presentation of this issue. So anyway, in short, don't go buying this vegan flag, and really avoid sort of joining in all this commercialization where people are just, they have big conferences, so-called animal rights conferences, where they're all talking about various ways to extend their career, or scheming ways to, to sort of bring in more donations, or selling their speciesist books and stuff. All of that kind of thing. Let's try and, create a grassroots, non-violent vegan movement where we're educating others to reject the property status of animals and stop eating, wearing, and using animals for justice and non-violence. And let's just, and that the other thing is that people who call themselves vegan, there are so many speciesist vegans today, and so many people who call themselves vegan and they're not vegan. So, when this flag was said it was going to unify vegans, well, personally, I have very little in common with a lot of vegans I know, because they're speciesist. And also, in many ways, they have very little interest in human social justice issues. And I don't see that fitting in with the vegan ethic at all, the lack of interest in, for example, the genocide of Palestinians, or the lack of interest in the current genocide that's happening in Yemen. If people aren't interested in that, then they don't have much in common with me. So, the whole unity thing, there are more speciesist vegans on the planet than there are non-speciesist ones. That's my view of it, my impression of it. Anyway, so this whole vegan flag thing is just another, probably underneath it all, it's probably another scam. I don't know Had Hakimi at all. I'm just going by what he said to me privately. And I think just the fact that he wasn't going to comment on the flag, on the Palestinian situation says it all. And I certainly wasn't going to buy a flag in the beginning, and I certainly am not going to be buying one now. So it's just another commercialization and another speciesist expression, another distortion of what veganism is. It's not even about the animals as usual, So anyway, that's really all I wanted to say. And I really implore you to check out these 4 videos, these 4 programs of the Empire Files about the various issues in Palestine right now. And I implore you to look at them, because it is truly lives, millions of lives depend on it. And if we are truly for justice and non-violence, then justice is not exclusive, and that means that when we see a very disenfranchised and oppressed group like the Palestinians, who only have people outside of Israel, people outside of their occupied Palestine, they only have people outside of their country to speak up for them, then we have to do that, because lives literally depend on it. They are being killed every single day. in various ways. So let's start sort of supporting people that are the most disenfranchised in the world, and that are going through terrible, brutal hardship. So thanks very much for watching. My name's Trish Roberts. You're watching Faint Signals from Viga. Till next time, take care. Bye for now.